So one of the things the Shara B'Tachan says is that you can't change the pace of life. You can't accelerate things. You can't delay them. Everything is going to happen when it is supposed to happen. You have to have trust that Hashem is going to give you what you need when you need it. You can't change the speed of things. Nothing you will do will change the right moment, the right place, in the right setting. So here's a story of a man whose name was Avigdor. He was a very wealthy person, very successful person, and he heard about the Baal Shem Tov. He was inspired by the Baal Shem Tov's work and good deeds, and he decided that he wanted to visit the Baal Shem Tov and leave a significant contribution to participate in the Baal Shem Tov's holy work. Baal Shem Tov was involved in redeeming captives, which was a big problem at the time. He took care of destitute families. The Baal Shem Tov's rule was he did not go to sleep if there was money in the house. Money disturbed him. He couldn't sleep if there was money. So any money that came in the house had to leave the house, or he didn't go to sleep. And people came from all over that part of the world because they knew when nobody else could help them, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov would. So Avigdor came, and he leaves a very significant contribution on the Baal Shem Tov's desk, which, by the way, meant that Baal Shem Tov had a lot of work that day because he had to get rid of everything before he went to sleep. Anyway, the Baal Shem Tov thanks him, and he says to him, "Can I bless you?" Baal Shem Tov gave brachas. Man said, "No, I don't need any blessings." Baal Shem Tov said, "You sure? I can pray for you, give you a bracha?" Man said, "I'm fine. I have everything I could possibly want. I have affluence, I have plenty, I have my health, I have a wonderful family. I don't need anything. I just came to make my contribution. I want to participate in your holy work. I don't need anything." The Baal Shem Tov said, "Where are you from?" He said, "I'm from the Lithuanian town Broide, or Brody." Baal Shem Tov said, "Nice. Could you do me a favor?" He said, "Sure. I'll be honored to do you a favor." Baal Shem Tov said, "There's a letter I have to deliver, but I prefer to hand deliver it. So if you can wait a few moments, I'm going to write up this letter, and if you could deliver it, I'd appreciate it." The man said, "Sure, I'd be honored." So he waited, and the Baal Shem Tov quickly wrote a letter. He put the letter in an envelope. He wrote the name of the person to whom the letter was addressed, and he handed the envelope to this fellow Avigdor. Avigdor thanked the Baal Shem Tov, and he was off onto his merry way. He was a busy man. Things happened. Somehow, he forgot about the letter that the Baal Shem Tov asked him to deliver. 16 long years passed from that fateful day. 16 years. And 16 years later, suddenly things started to go wrong. A huge investment that everybody predicted would yield tremendous profit went sour. Lost a lot of the money that he had invested there. And then there was another issue and another problem. And then somebody defaulted on a large loan. Problem after problem, issue after issue. Within the course of 6 months, he went from being on top of the world to literally scrounging for food for his family. He lost all of his real estate holdings. He was barely holding on to the house in which he lived. His creditors wanted to take it. And he didn't have the ability to feed his own family. Desperate to find something to sell for bread, he went to the attic to rummage through to see if he could find something that he could still get a few kopecks for. And he found a box of old clothes, and in there he found a jacket. And he took out the jacket. Looks kind of decent, this jacket. He figured, we'll sell it, feed his family. He figured before he sells the jacket, he should check the pockets, right? And in the pocket of the jacket, he found a letter. And he saw it's addressed to a certain Mr. Tzadok. And underneath the man's name, it says, Yoshev Rosh Vad Hatzdakot Broidi. the head of the tzedakah committee of Brody. He never had to ask anybody for tzedakah. He didn't know who the head of the tzedakah committee is, but he went with a jacket to try and sell it, and he asked somebody in the marketplace, do you know of a Mr. Tzadok? Mr. Tzadok, the head of the tzedakah committee? Man said, yeah, it was actually big news in Shul today. This guy just was elected to be the head of the tzedakah committee. That's very interesting, said the man. He said, what's he like, this Tzadok fellow? He said, well, Tzadok's a very interesting guy. For years, he was a poor tailor. You know, he did some hems, patches, literally barely made a living. And a few months ago, he had this windfall. It was one of the local noblemen was supposed to go somewhere, and he needed new uniforms for his retinue, and somehow somebody knew somebody, and somebody suggested this tailor, and all of a sudden this guy got this huge job, and he hired other people to help him, and he finished the job, and then that squire was happy, and he referred him, and the guy's just had endless business through his door. All of a sudden, he's like a super success. And he expanded his business. He's not even doing only tailoring now. And the guy says to him, you know what's interesting about this guy, Tzadok? A lot of people get rich, they forget the poor. He never forgot where he came from. He's been very generous all along. And that's why today he was replaced. The old head of the tzedakah committee just left now. He is the new head of the tzedakah committee. I think this says, wow, this is pretty amazing. And he goes to show, and there's a long line of people. Breda was a big town. Breda was probably thousands of Jews living in Breda. There's a long line of people that are waiting to see this tzadok. And he waits his turn, and he comes to tzadok, and he says, I have a letter for you from the Baal Shem. Really? Said tzadok. And he takes this paper, it's folded, it looks old, and he opens it up, and he reads. The Baal Shem Tov says, Dear Reb Tzadok, Mazel Tov on your appointment to the head of the tzedakah committee. The man who stands before you was a fine person who did very well for a long time, and he always gave tzedakah. Unfortunately, he's fallen on hard times. He is deserving of whatever help you can give. And the second paragraph says, and in case you don't believe the contents of this letter, you should know that your wife is going to have a baby soon, and it will be a baby boy. As the man reads the letter in shock and disbelief, a fellow runs in and he says, Mazel Tov Tzadok! Your wife just had a baby boy. Well, Tzadok gave this person a large sum of money from the Tzedakah Committee's fund, and he was able to rebuild his wealth, and he was able to, so to speak, get back on the wagon, and as they say, lived happily ever after, but this is not a fairy tale.